pressure is the force per unit area exerted on a vessel wall by the contained blood. Or, in more simple terms, it's the amount of force your blood uses to get through your arteries. Target blood pressure is 120/80, but a little bit of fluctuation from this number is not always a bad thing. For example, aerobic athletes typically have a slightly lower blood pressure because they have a stronger heart due to their training. The top number is the systolic pressure. This is the peak pressure that occurs from the left ventricle contracting and expelling blood through the aorta. This diagram shows where those structures are located. Those contractions push the blood through all the body's arteries because it follows the pressure gradient, meaning that the blood is always moving from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure throughout the body. Pressure is always highest near the heart where the original contractions are taking place, and it slowly dwindles down to where it is smallest in your smallest arteries, called the arterioles. While blood is traveling through the veins on its way back to the heart, pressure does continue to decrease until eventually it reaches 0 units. The bottom number is called the diastolic pressure. This is measured in between heartbeats while the heart is filling up with blood and all the muscles are relaxed. The aortic valve, which you can see in the diagram below, is closed to prevent blood from flowing backwards into the ventricles, causing the aortic pressure to drop to the lowest it will ever get. However, the aortic walls do recoil in order to maintain some pressure and keep up the pressure gradient in the arteries. Without the pressure gradient, blood would not be propelled through the body and gas exchange would not take place. Now that I've gone over the basics, I'm going to get into how to take blood pressure, a skill that almost all healthcare professionals must know how to do. The method to take blood pressure is called the auscultatory method. This method uses a blood pressure cuff, formerly called a sphygmomanometer, and a stethoscope. The sphygmomanometer consists of the cuff, which is the part that wraps around the patient's arms, the bulb, which is the part that fills the cuff up with air, the air release valve, and you spin this up to close it, and down to open it. And finally, the pressure gauge. The first step is to wrap the cuff around the patient's arm, just superior or above the elbow. Next, place your stethoscope on the brachial artery, which is located on the inside of the elbow. Hold on to the top part of the stethoscope to cancel out any other noises, and make sure you can hear the pulse before you continue on with the rest of this method. Then, turn the air release valve all the way up to ensure that it is closed. Since you are holding the bulb in one hand, use your thumb and pointer finger to spin the air release valve up until it is fully tightened. Inflate the cuff until its pressure exceeds the systolic pressure. When blood flow to the arm ceases, you know you're above the systolic pressure. You'll know you're at this point because you will no longer be able to hear the brachial pulse through this stethoscope, and if you tried to feel for it, you would not be able to. Slowly turn the air release valve down while watching the pressure gauge. The pressure it's at when you first hear soft tapping sounds is the systolic pressure. Continue to reduce the pressure while listening closely to the brachial pulse and watching the pressure gauge. As you do this, the sound should become louder and more distinct. When the artery is no longer constricted and blood flows freely, these tapping sounds will disappear. The pressure at this point is the diastolic pressure. These two steps are the most complex and hardest to accomplish because you have to pay really close attention to what you're hearing and seeing, all while slowly releasing the air from the valve. You want to make sure that you're spinning the valve slowly, otherwise the air will come out too fast and you won't be able to see the numbers in time. After you find the diastolic pressure, you can spin the air release valve and let the air out fast in order to return normal blood flow to the arm. This volunteer patient, aka my sister, has a blood pressure of 110/70, which is healthy considering that she's a 13-year-old athlete. Normal blood pressure is crucial for proper blood flow from the heart to the body's organs and tissues. Blood is forced further through the body with each heartbeat. Blood carries many different nutrients, oxygen, and more to body cells, and also collects waste, carbon dioxide, and even more things from the body cells to get rid of, so it is important for it to be able to move through the blood and vessels properly. High blood pressure is when the force of the blood pushing against the artery walls is consistently too high. This means that the heart must work harder to pump the blood throughout the body. This is also known as hypertension and is when the blood pressure reading is 130/80 or higher. Chronically high blood pressure can lead to many bad side effects. Some of these complications are heart attacks and heart failure, strokes, kidney problems, eye problems, dementia, and changes with memory and understanding. Low blood pressure, formerly called hypotension, occurs when the force of the blood pushing against the artery walls is too low. Due to this, the heart, brain, and other parts of the body might not get enough blood, which means they also won't be getting the nutrients and oxygen they need to function properly. Anything below 90/60 is considered to be hypotension. Some of the dangers of low blood pressure are shock, heart or brain damage, dizziness, weakness, and fainting, and injuries from falls.